Ah, the Mary Sue. It's been a while since I talk about this site. I wonder, what's going on in their latest scoops?
Your fave is problematic. Callout culture, cyberbullying, and toxic activism in fandom.
Yes, I do find this political activism very toxic among anything. Not just fandom. Get your politics out of my entertainment media. Oh, sorry, extra credits. That's the sort of phrase that you would strawman me at. Okay, let me make it 100% clear. Stop talking real-life political issues in my entertainment media.
Internet callout culture and the now widely parodied notion of your fave is problematic highlight instances where celebrities or creators of the popular media we consume use pejorative language or engage with issues in a manner which further marginalizes undeserved identities.
Which is why the best way for you to speak is to speak louder and talk over people. All voices are equal, but some are more equal than others. Isn't that right?
I fully support engaging with the information we're being fed and interrogating flaccid platitudes, as opposed to just passively accepting what we're told. It's a post-truth, alternative facts era, folks. Challenging official lines and mainstream narratives is part and parcel of resisting, a feature of dismantling the things our society normalizes, all of which disenfranchise marginalized groups.
So, in other words, challenge the status quo! Resist! Well, the only problem is, feminism is the status quo. And yes, you're right, it does disenfranchise marginalized groups. You know, like men's rights activists. You know, for someone who criticizes people for using platitudes, you certainly have quite a lot of those. Oh, and full disclosure, I was in Honey Badger Radio 3 times. No, that doesn't make me a men's rights activist, I just really love to hang around with the people. But you're just gonna speculate either way, so whatever.
There's a different kind of call-out culture within fan communities that claims to come from the same place as the examples above, but is a toxic kind of activism enforced by a small but vocal minority. This is a culture of fans calling people out within their own communities for the content they produce creatively, the romantic pairings they ship, or the characters they like. It's often less about constructive debate and more about who can shout the loudest. Utilizing hate speech and slurs through anonymous ask functions, direct messaging, and subtweets is, to put it simply, cyberbullying.
I really need to call Mr. Metacore for this. There is a game of Battleship going on here and it's freaking brilliant. And you can't always have a productive discussion of what your ships are. I've been in these games of battleships before and it's not and has never ended up very good to both sides. As someone who is writing about fandom, you should know that very well.
I'm a big fan of podcasts and meta-posts that engage with polarizing issues like diversity, queer activism, and misogyny in fandom through careful, critical lens. There's clear hypocrisy in calling out those in the public eye for problematic statements before going on to post something racist, homophobic, misogynistic, or otherwise, engaging in persistent harassment, invading celebrity or creator privacy, and so on.
I agree. I do notice the hypocrisy of people telling others to please treat women well, please respect women's personal freedom. But then they went on to say women should cover up and shackle themselves even more than they needed. Sounds a little hypocritical to me.
What I find more insidious and worrisome is when the importance of identifying and pointing out systemic fractures within society becomes a stick with which one can beat on fandom participants, wielded by a few who have appointed themselves the moral voice of fandom at large.
In other words, damn these moral guardians telling other moral guardians in how to be better moral guardians. Stop using moral guardian arguments to justify whatever the fuck you want. Wow, Mary Sue. It's almost like you realize the real problem that we have with people like you, the fact that you're being too much of a moral guardian, you make it into a competition to the point where the people inside your own community is practically eating itself.
There's the content policing, which suggests that certain restrictions should be enforced on fake archiving sites, beyond the warning systems and content tags, which exist precisely to help people avoiding triggering content.
Avoiding triggering content? In fanfiction? You fucking what, mate?
Then there's the bullying, which masks itself through the appropriation of social justice movements, and a call-out culture which affords no scope for learning from past mistakes.
OMG! People are using your social justice movement as an excuse for bullying people on the internet? What a shocking revelation! That has never happened before, ever!
This isn't a new phenomenon. In 2015, a fan artist in the Steven Universe fandom attempted suicide after repeated attacks over fan art, which was deemed problematic. In the same year, a small number of fans targeted certain Sherlock convention panelists and attendees with online harassment and doxing campaigns. Multiple fandoms with real people as the focus of fanish attention have been guilty of celebrity harassment, and the understandable desire to discourage such harassment can create toxicity on both sides, which manifests itself within fandom in hate-filled, anonymous asks and Twitter threads.
Do you see the problem now, Mary Sue? You have an entire community striving to find things problematic to the point where it harms real people in the process, when it doesn't really have to be. It's all thanks to you finding certain things problematic and striving to be the most moral individual on planet Earth. You have managed to cause damage to others thanks to way too much of your moral guarding. Please don't do these certain things because we find it problematic. Someone might get offended by it, or in fact, that person over there is offended by it. I would say good job to all of you Tumblrites out there. You have managed to reach peak cancer. People's lives are at stake thanks to your feelings.
Fandom wank and ship wars have been around for a long time. Issues can become divisive, and the inevitable descent from constructive debate to name-calling seems cynical. As old fandoms move into new spaces and new fandoms gain traction, the same debates reappear, and the fandom old guard end up having the same conversations.
And this is why I detach myself out of cancerous fandoms.
I accept there is an uneasy balance between the desire to encourage respectful interaction and becoming the tone police, a tension between advocating for kindness and creating an oppressive culture of nice, where nobody can disagree with anything and everybody's rendered silent.
Well, unfortunately, you are creating that very culture right now. Come on, Mary Sue, you're just inches away into looking at the mirror.
There's a clear distinction between exploring objects of fandom and considered meta and characters analysis on the one hand, and attempting to force people to ship, write, and like people deemed worthy of attention on the other. The latter is often combined with the toxic use of social justice activism to coerce fans to agree with a particularly vocal group. When disagreements result in gleeful celebrations over deleted accounts and the disappearance of one or more people into the ether, it leaves something of a bitter taste.
Wow, isn't that amazing? Mary Sue looks into a mirror and realizes that begging for creators to please have this shit because must social justice is not a productive way of doing anything, and that doing this shit only creates more and more division. Wow! Congratulations, Mary Sue! You are on the process of eating yourself.
I've seen people driven out of fandoms because of persistent flaming of their work in ship wars. I've seen hetero shippers labeled gross and homophobic, and shippers of enemy/pairings called abusive because of the relationships they portray creatively.
Wow. That is freaking petty. Calling things homophobic to a certain fictional work, that's one thing. But fanfictions? Wow. It's Tumblr literally eating itself. Not just Mary Sue. It's freaking Tumblr. Grab yourself some popcorn, guys. This is pretty freaking fun.
At this juncture, people often find themselves forced to share personal information about their own experiences with abuse or identity in order to explain why they should be allowed to have a voice in the debate, a complicated trend towards details of identity, life experience, and socioeconomic status being required to validate opinion or justify a place at the table.
Oh, so people are using their own personal experiences and abuse stories and their identities to justify shipping?
When the language used to attack other fans involves slurs and hate, as opposed to doing anything meaningful to advance conversations around fandom spaces and the works produced within them, I would suggest that identity doesn't give anyone a free pass. Engaging with discussions around lack of diversity, ships, content restrictions, and respectful interaction with celebrities and creators is a debate. Telling someone to kill themselves because you don't like their ship is not.
I love that you put the word diversity and ship at the same sentence as if they're equally valuable discussions to have in a serious conversation. I mean, diversity is one thing, but ship? My ship! My ship!
I've almost forgotten what you feel like.
I'll remind you.
Did Barbara just flirt with him at the in the middle of the battle? Thank you so much, assuming that's Barbara.
Yeah, assuming that's Barbara.
Yep. All clear, Corey.
Nope.
I'll beat the tower.
That is Starfire. That is
No.
Starfire.
No!
No!
No! I quit!
I quit. We're done.
You are such a chlorbag.
is not okay. This needs to stop now. This is cancer.
In the predominantly female-gendered and queer community, the ability to strike a balance between a degree of critical introspection and providing a safe space for freedom of expression is so important. I heave a sigh when I see people criticized for producing content that represents relationships which are unhealthy or damaging, as if fiction should be didactic. King-shaming is loud and vitriolic, and the line between fiction and reality seems to have become increasingly blurred and ill-defined, with outlandish claims made about the moral compass of individual fandom participants based on the material they produce.
Oh, let me tell you whose line between fiction and reality are blurred. People who can't distinguish between fan fictions and real life. You know, kind of like some of the writers in your side.
There's a thin line between critical interrogation of transformative works and policing female fantasy and creative output. As I've expanded beyond LiveJournal and spent more time on other platforms, the same debates we were having years ago about darkfic, freedom of expression, and policing transformative works are prevalent. I don't want to see women's voices stifled and marginalized when fandom has long offered an unfettered and safe creative outlet for female creators. I particularly don't want to see this happen in grounds of morality, as if fiction is duty-bound to adhere to some kind of highly subjective moral code established by a vocal few.
Wow. Wow, that... I actually agree. I actually freaking agree, but... it's coming from the Mary Sue. It's coming from the Mary Sue. That's like a liar telling other people to not lie. I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying here, but I can't help but to feel a little uncomfortable by the people who say it. I know it's practically ad hominem, but seriously... just seriously.
This kind of puritanical policing all comes from a place of misogyny, tied up with moral panic around what women might be reading or writing. It's exactly these sorts of arguments that have historically suppressed and silenced art created by women. And in our communities, those online spaces of our own, we should be fighting to resist any kind of suggestion that the people within them aren't free to create something on grounds of virtuosity.
Yes! Yes, Mary Sue! You actually get it! This puritanical policing all comes from a place of misogyny, as in the people who are calling other people misogynists might turn out to be misogynists themselves. These sorts of arguments have suppressed and silenced art created by women. Also, yes, God knows how many times you criticize women for wearing too thin. And also, yes, we shouldn't be letting people to tell what we can and cannot make. We are free to resist and fight them and make whatever the hell you want. The only problem is, Mary Sue, this is coming from you. And whatever the things you've done in the past, now it's biting you in the ass. How does that feel?
I don't advocate silence or believe we have to tiptoe around one another constantly. We live in an era of Trump, and with right-wing nationalist rhetoric finding increasing support, we should be angry.
Well, you lost that self-awareness again. At least this thing is really biting you in the ass though, right?
Although interrogating fictional works and fandom itself is an important part of being a fan, there's nothing socially progressive about toxic callouts hiding beneath the guise of social justice.
Yes, I agree, Mary Sue. There's nothing socially progressive about toxic callouts hiding beneath the guise of social justice, which is why I advise you to, for the love of God, stop doing it to anything at all, ever. Oh God, that was hilarious. Before we end this video, huge thanks to Amisami Nasatsuki for the pledge on Patreon. You are fantastic. That's all for the video today. If you like this, you can go ahead, click the like button, and subscribe for more. If you wish, you can support me on Patreon, donate to me on Streamlabs, and thanks for watching.